It's fine. Just get that sorted. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Sports Talk. This one is going to be a very short episode again, as we briefly discuss WWE. Well, Raw was absolute fucking hot garbage. So, Lana is getting married to Bobby Lashley. I don't know why we're still doing these stories when the internet exists. People know that Lana is not into Bobby. People know that Bobby is married with kids. Why are we doing this story? Because WWE don't know what else the fuck to do. Because they are so focused on getting NXT to crush out AEW. They're so focused on that their product has now gone from absolute garbage to unwatchable. I can't watch Monday Night Raw. I can no longer watch the wrestling show which got me, and probably everyone else, into pro wrestling. That hurts, right? But, look, this isn't me being a stubborn fan. I don't want to watch something just because of the name. I want to watch something because it's genuinely entertaining. Like, if AEW wasn't entertaining, if it genuinely was just another WWE, I wouldn't watch it. You know, I watch New Japan because it's completely different. I watch Ring of Honor. It's not completely different, but it's not as full on because there's no dramas like there seems to be with WWE. It's a fucking soap opera all the time. So, everyone knows that already sucks because they've gone from 10 million viewers to, what are they at now for viewership anyway? Like, 2 million? Yeah, so, you know, not exactly good. I don't know who to put in there. Sure, put Kenny in there. Yeah. So, if you want to watch wrestling, stay the fuck away from Raw and SmackDown because it'll hurt your head, it'll piss you off, and you won't even have to understand what's going on because no one else does. Great entrance music. Right. Now, this brings us on to my more important point, which is more involved with the Wednesday Night Wars than Raw and SmackDown. NXT. Right? NXT have been around for almost a decade, and they're struggling to beat AEW, who have existed for a year. This tells you that over the years, NXT should remain the same, and AEW will continue to build up. And I'll tell you why that will happen. Because NXT will never be in a position to say that they can compete with AEW. They do not have the same stars. They will not have the same storytelling ability. They do not run the same schedules. They do not have the same rosters. It's as simple as that. NXT and AEW shouldn't be competing, but they are anyway. You know, for the sake of it. For the sake of damaging AEW, which I believe is true. I think if NXT stuck to the network, NXT could continue with their, 200, 300,000 people watching it on the network. And that extra 500,000 might be watching AEW. Who knows? But what I do know, for an absolute fact, is that NXT can't keep up. Right? This is the problem. They both have a good balance of stars that are new and stars that are established, right? But the thing is, with the stars in NXT that have been established, it's because they've established themselves by having matches with each other, right? So, we're not getting a lot of, new, exciting matchups, and we're not really building anyone specifically new. We're just recycling stories right now in WWE. And they're not doing that in AEW because they have to get 70, 80 new guys over. Which I would say they've done about a quarter of. I would say quite successful so far. I would say there's at least 20 guys that people could now recognize quite quickly. But it's such a shame, you know, that NXT, and I love this, right? The whole mindset of this is that NXT is out to ruin AEW. This has ruined NXT. NXT is now a 2-hour show. It now has more promos than ever. The matches feel worked. They don't feel genuine. NXT's changed. Since it's come to network, NXT has not been NXT, right? Everyone has been absolutely right in saying that NXT has simply become the WWE show. Because if they want to step out, right, as non-developmental, then that means that you're taking that world of ratings and demos, right, and shoving it slap bang in the middle of Raw and SmackDown, who are doing more than 3 times the number that NXT does. How can this be anything but bad for NXT? Like, am I the only one that really sees this? Like, in a year's time, the 4 or 5 main guys of NXT will have wrestled. The main woman in the women's division will probably go up to the main roster before WrestleMania. And then AEW, well, they've got years ahead of them. Right? AEW need to lock down their storytelling and just being on television. NXT will have to drive themselves. NXT will have to fire shots, and I know they're firing shots, and I'll tell you how I know they're firing shots. 2 days ago, AEW announced that the opener for Dynamite will be Kenny Omega, Hangman Page versus Lucha Brothers. The cool incentive being that it will be commercial free. Okay? Now, here's the sign of the Wednesday Night War. Yesterday, WWE announced NXT opener is the NXT title match between Finn Balor and Adam Cole. Which, guess what? Is going to, breaking news, is going to air commercial free. The WWE can't compete with NXT, the WWE and NXT can't compete with AEW unless they copy them. And the only reason people like NXT, the majority of those fans that have arguments for NXT over AEW, is about the women's division. Another thing I'd like to point out is that at the original rallies of AEW, they always talked about how they wanted the best women's division in the world, and as soon as that happened, NXT started to focus on their women's division. What a shock. Right? What a shock. And we shouldn't really say, oh, WWE, these are so bad, because we were always saying that AEW is going to make WWE improve their product. Now, they'll improve the product, but if it's done by the same people, it's still going to ultimately end up being shit. And NXT is going to burn out. Right? Adam Cole versus Finn Balor, right, is a main event caliber match. That should be the main event of their next takeover that they've announced, which surprisingly isn't actually on a Wednesday or a Saturday, which is when AEW would be doing a show. That's my version of a little jab. But yeah, no, they're sacrificing their own product for the sake of beating AEW in the ratings. I mean, WWE were the ones that said that this is a marathon, not a sprint, but they're taking all the actions that you would if this was a sprint. They're throwing away title matches, they're not focusing on genuinely decent stories, and the only ones that they are, everyone's getting injured. I mean, what, Dakota Kai's injured already? And she injured Mia Yim, who was, like, injured before that? I don't even know. Like, there's so much going on. Like, NXT's becoming a mindfuck, right? And as soon as it becomes a mindfuck, it becomes like Raw and SmackDown. And that is the problem. NXT moving to television. Yes, it'll hurt AEW. Yes, it'll be good for the stars on NXT for a little while. And even if NXT, say if NXT did beat AEW, right, over the year, AEW still has money to last for years. We've got to remember this. The argument for AEW never putting WWE out of business was that WWE is owned by a billionaire. Well, now AEW is also owned by a billionaire. Fair, it's not all of the billions invested in the company, but Tony Khan can keep AEW alive as long as he wants. Trust me, I know he can. So, even if it became like a privatized network sort of situation, you know, like your Ring of Honors or your Impact, it would still be a huge deal for the simple fact that it exists. But I want it to remain a competitor because I genuinely believe that half the talent in the AEW roster can tell better stories and put on better matches than anyone in WWE.
Golden Trigger!
It's bizarre. But I don't want NXT to burn out. I love NXT. I've always loved NXT. That's how I got introduced to Finn Balor, to Samoa Joe, to Kevin Owens, to almost every star that went to the main roster and actually became a big deal. But I'm worried that that is all going to just be crushed. That Triple H's baby for helping talent get introduced into WWE gets absolutely crushed by the stupidity of the old senile gentleman known as Vince Kennedy McMahon. And nobody, absolutely nobody, right, can tell me that it won't happen. No one can tell me for genuine that Vince McMahon will not bury NXT. I believe he already has. Right? The way I see it, he is called, him, Triple H, people, even roster members of WWE, have said AEW is the minor leagues. Right. So you throw NXT in there to compete with them. You then put the NXT group over the main roster at Survivor Series. And there's still less people watching NXT than there should be in comparison to AEW. Like, if anything, that's just taught us that WWE just tried to get the mainstream crowd behind NXT, and the crowd saw through it. The crowd went, we know why this is happening. These guys would never win these matches unless AEW was around, because this simply wasn't happening before. Hang on a sec. Yeah, sorry. I was reading a fan's comment agreeing with me, because I had pointed out the whole NXT Championship commercial-free match being announced a day after AEW's. A guy pretty much agreeing with me that the money-making match that is Finn Balor and Adam Cole will never be a money-making match ever again if it's the opener for a TV show. fact. I don't know how you could argue with that. Right? This is gonna... It doesn't matter. You know? Like, does that not suck? That we have a title match with Finn Balor and Adam Cole, and it doesn't feel like it matters. It just feels like a ratings draw, which is exactly what it is. Right? This, storyline-wise, sure the match makes sense, but as an opener, it undermines their work. Right? The fact that Ripley and Shayna will get the main event. Just, I'm not saying that Cole and Balor should be the main event over them. I'm not saying that at all. If anything, I'm more excited for the Shayna match. But the opener, like seriously, like you're currently at NXT, right? So AEW announced a normal tag match with no commercials. So then your company announces a title match with no commercials, which will be on for the same period of time. And it's getting very personal now, because WWE aren't attacking the blockbuster main events, they're now targeting the blockbuster stories that AEW are telling. Because the match that they're trying to fuck with is the Kenny Omega Hangman versus the Lucha Brothers match, which is where we're currently telling the story of Hangman Page coming off the rails and distancing himself from the Elite. That's what WWE are trying to fuck with. And if you can follow all of my thought process up until now, this is exactly what they think in WWE. Right? I can pinpoint their exact thought process with ease because children could do it. So WWE, for the love of God, focus on your own product because it sucks. Right? Sabotaging AEW's is just going to make yours suck more. Half of the AEW audience watches WWE. If you're going to be so determined to drive them away, then fuck. Don't come bitching if you can't beat AEW with your supposed C-level team, also known as the developmentals up until a few months ago. Just seriously, WWE. I know no one genuine is listening to this, right? And if you're a WWE fan, maybe this just sends a message to you. I'm not telling you to go and watch AEW, right? But no one on the internet is firing shots at Impact. No one's being cancerous over New Japan. No, hell, even there's not many people bitching about the NWA. Which is encroaching on the same territory as AEW, with big stars, and everyone's just like, oh well, NWE is great. It's like, I'll tell you why. Because it's not competing with fucking NXT. It's because it's on YouTube. Right? WWE have caused this cancerous behavior in the wrestling fan base. They are encouraging it, they are thriving off it, and they're even telling stars to go on Twitter and start winding people up because it gets people talking about WWE. In WWE, any headline is a good headline. They're not interested in good headlines. If they were interested in good headlines, they wouldn't have tried to get Dean Ambrose to make a cancer joke on a show that's sponsored by Susan G. Komen. That's a fact. I'm not firing shots. This is how it works. This is what we've observed. This is what we've looked at. Right? If you're willing to support that company, right, fine. Because I'm sure there's a couple of stars that you like. Because there's a couple of stars I like. I like Daniel Bryan. I used to like Roman Reigns until they started to push him like he was a fucking Roman god. I used to love Brock Lesnar until he became a part-timer. I like wrestling. Here's the thing, I am not a biased fan, but I am more biased towards other shows because WWE treats me like a moron and then starts to crap on everyone else because they feel like they have to. WWE WWE as a company is basically the Jim Cornette of the wrestling fan base. They are the Jim Cornette of the wrestling companies as well. What Jim Cornette is to the fan base is what WWE is to the industry. Just total cancer. I mean, there's some things there, and they have a credible past. And everyone knows that WWE has a credible past because everyone will cheer for Hollywood Hulk Hogan and The Rock way louder than they would ever cheer for any stars they currently have. And I say stars quite loosely because I don't think there's any real stars on WWE right now with the exception of Daniel Bryan, and they've just shaved him to look like the American Dragon again because guess what? That's a recycled gimmick and people will get behind it because it's nostalgic, and that probably means he's going to beat Bray Wyatt because Vince will go, Daniel Bryan's over again. This is how he looked 10 years ago. It's what will get him over then. This will get him over now. Because they don't know what else to do. And they can't bring back The Rock because it's too expensive. They can't bring back Cena because Cena doesn't want to come back. So now they're taking their only stars and turning them into the burying machine. If you get what I mean. Like John Cena used to be the burying machine. The Rock came in and buried CM Punk. Right? Daniel Bryan is going to become the guy to bury people because his career is short. He hasn't got long left. He's had lots of injuries. He's now just, I won't say re-debuted the American Dragon, but that's what we're going for here. Like, WWE are so narrow-minded, stupid concepts. We know this is what they're going for. And it's so predictable. It's so lame. And oh my god, I mean, if this bald, former furry dude pins The Fiend... Right. If The Fiend gets pinned clean before WrestleMania, or even at WrestleMania, right, I am cancelling my subscription to the WWE Network. Bray Wyatt's character was like a last glimmer of hope for me as a fan. I saw the gimmick and I thought, that is genius. There's no way this isn't going to work. And then all the fans started joking, well, don't say that, this is Vince. And then I went, oh my god, you're right. It's not like he's with AEW, he's with WWE. Bray Wyatt's fucked. And it dawned on me after about 15 minutes, I was like, I'm not excited anymore. Like, if Bray Wyatt can't get this over, if WWE bury him, that's it. This character is Bray Wyatt's last leg. This is his last big everything. And they fucked it up already. They fucked it up at Hell in a Cell. His first like, pay-per-view main event as The Fiend. They fucked it up. And then the second one was in Saudi Arabia. So nobody gave a shit. They've done the rivalry with Daniel Bryan. No one gives a shit. They've done something with The Miz now. No one gives a shit. This man has just thrown everything into The Fiend. And nobody cares because he's been booked wrong. Because you can tell people have told him to change things in his segment, in his gear. And you've ruined it. Well done, WWE. You took a multi-million-dollar concept, horror concept, which would have made money and probably got fans into the product. You've buried it. You've made him look like a killer clown on acid. Congratulations. The Fiend is a killer clown on acid. I hope you're really fucking proud of yourselves, WWE, because this is what you've created. And what's amazing is that you don't even know you've created this because you've been too damn busy focusing on AEW and stealing their shit. So get your own shit together, find your own shit, and for the love of God, WWE, if you're going to take $1 billion from Fox TV, don't shove dog food down Roman Reigns' throat. Thanks. This has been the Sports Talk. If you're a wrestling fan, stay the fuck away from WWE because it'll make you miserable and you only have one life and you don't